Hello and welcome to another weekly update. Slightly different this time. I've actually switched from doing them on Friday afternoons to doing them first thing Monday morning. So that's the reason for a slight delay. I did kind of, if you follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, you'd have seen that already. But if not, if you're wondering why it's slightly delayed, that's why. I think this is kind of a better time, start of the week. I'll give you some links to kind of use as your research throughout the week if you want something to dip into that's a bit different. And it's kind of better for me as well. Let's look into some of the things that are coming up this week. We've got Microsoft Inspire, that's kind of interesting and exciting. And then some interesting things happened throughout last week as well. It is starting to slow down a little bit. So don't forget in the calendar of Microsoft events, we're right at the start of a new financial year for Microsoft. So, and it goes into the summer holiday period. So we see a kind of period leading up to the 1st of July that tends to have quite a lot of activity in it as people kind of try and get stuff done this side or that side of the financial year. And then once it gets to 1st of July, everyone kind of relaxes, kind of takes a couple of days and just resets. And that's when the reorgs happen. And we've seen a few of those. I think we'll probably see more reorg announcements come over the summer. And it's also coming into the summer holiday period. We've got Inspire though. That's a kind of big milestone. That's coming up later this week. And so we'll look out for announcements from that. Other things that have been happening. So I did a blog post about this last week. You can now use Microsoft Graph to set presence in Teams, which is new and interesting. You've not been able to do this before. You've always been able to, well, not always, for quite a long time, you've been able to get the presence in a couple of different ways. You can use it with delegated permissions. So if you sign the user in as themselves, then you can see their presence. You've also been able to subscribe to change notifications for lots of people's presence changing. So you have been able to write applications that respond to presence changes, but you haven't been able to set the presence. And you now can do that. You can now set the presence. This API had a slightly bumpy start. You can see from these updates, it didn't, I think it was still rolling out when the documentation went live. So that's kind of what's happened. The documentation landed whilst the feature was still rolling out. So it didn't work for me and some others, and then it sort of did. And now it does seem to be working. So I've put all the errors in the blog post. So if you're seeing problems, you can kind of check and make sure that's not the problem. But if you're watching this, or you're, a couple of weeks or something after I've recorded it, this probably won't be a problem for you. So there's a set presence command. Very exciting. It's application permission based, so it's not delegation permission. It's only application permission based. You can set it for any user. You can set available. You can set away. You can set busy states. You can't set DND. And there's a limited set of busy states and away states you can set. A couple of interesting things. You need to provide an expiration time, so literally how long this presence should be valid for, and it will reset after that time. You can refresh it and you can reset the status within that, but it's better than, you could imagine an application might just set you as busy and then the user exits the application or the application crashes and it never gets set back from busy. So that's what I think they're trying to avoid by saying that, when you set presence, you have to give it a duration that the presence is valid for. You can shortcut that as well with a clear presence command. So if you need to kind of programmatically reset the presence, you can absolutely do that. And in the blog post, I kind of go through all these different presence states. And then I touch a bit on the end about kind of what it means and what it unlocks. I think it's going to be interesting for applications. It provides just a different thing that you can do with presence. It allows applications to control presence, and that's great for any number of applications that want to say to everyone else in Teams, this user is busy, this user is doing something else. What's super interesting is you can actually use this presence to set your state to being in a call or in a conference call, which is really interesting, and it kind of unlocks the use of third-party calling and conferencing that is not Microsoft Teams. So if you can imagine, like if you join a Teams meeting or make a Teams call, Teams is going to set that presence for you to in a call and a conference call. You don't need an application to do that. But if you're joining a third-party service like a Zoom call or a WebEx call, maybe you could have that application set present so everyone else in Teams knows that you're in a call or in a conference call, even though it's not a Teams-based one. So super interesting, that functionality then. It'd be really, really interesting to see how that gets exploited and how that gets used. ACS is another interesting place where Azure Communication Services, where this might come into play as well and be useful. So yeah, a couple of interesting things to dig into there around set presence. So you can go and check out that blog post that kind of got published last week. All right, next up. This only got published this morning, although the announcement was made last week or even the week before. It just took me that long to pick up on it. So Microsoft for a while have run community calls, and these are open to everybody, and they're online, and they get recorded to YouTube, and they are a chance for you to interact with the engineering team. They're a chance for you to hear about new things, to ask questions, to see demos of what's coming up. They're a great way of interacting with, for Microsoft to interact with the community, and for the community to interact back with the engineering teams and the product teams. There are a number of different community calls that happen, and there has previously been community calls for Microsoft Teams developers, for SharePoint developers, and for Microsoft Graph developers. What's happening now is that all of those are being rolled up into one big Microsoft 365 platform community call that will encompass Teams, SharePoint, and Graph all in one. This is not going to happen until the end of August. So right now, those community calls are on a summer break. So for the months of July and August. But starting at the end of August, August 31st, the new combined call is going to be on Tuesdays, and it's going to be every Tuesday. So it's not going to be a monthly call like the Teams, SharePoint, Graph ones were previously. It's going to be a weekly call every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. London time. So that is really interesting. It's still going to be recorded, still going to be posted to the YouTube channel. Right, big deep breath. What does this mean? It means if you enjoy attending the community calls for Teams and Graph and SharePoint, and they're great, by the way, you should attend them. They're a really good source of information about what's happening, really good source of demos and all the rest of it. You should be attending them. All of those meetings you should cancel, and you should go and get the new meeting link that is now published, and I put it in my blog post as well, so you can get it from there, or you can go and read the original article and get it from there, or where else can you go? That you can go to aka.ms/m365-dev-call. Number of places you can go, but you need to go and get that new invite and save it into your calendar, so when August 31st rolls around, you'll be ready. This doesn't affect any existing community calls for Adaptive Cards, Identity Platform, Office add-ins, Power Apps, or the SharePoint framework. So they all continue. They don't have any summer breaks as well, so they are carrying on as monthlies. What is changing is the Graph, SharePoint, and Teams one is going away. Those monthly calls are going away to be replaced by a Microsoft 365 platform one that is going to be weekly on Tuesdays. So I think that's really good, actually. I think it's going to be, what we're doing is replacing 3 calls in a month with 4 calls in a month. So there's more chance for interaction. So that's good. But also I think it spreads out, having giving that team the freedom, if you like, to talk about any of those things and more as they come up, I think is good. It means that you don't have to kind of try and force out, a whole load of update or demos about one of the particular products when really there isn't anything happening, and then cram a whole load of stuff into the next week because it just so happened that a load of, let's say, SharePoint content or a load of Teams content just happened that week. So it gives you much more flexibility and freedom to the organizers to kind of tell the news that's happening really and do the demos that are relevant. So I think that's really good. And yeah, so we look forward to that starting at the end of August. All right, what else is happening? Okay, so if you are a Microsoft 365 app developer, so you build Microsoft Teams apps, for instance, there are other sorts, but let's just focus on Teams apps for a minute. You probably already know about verification of your apps. You may already know about the app compliance program. However, this is an updated blog post that I will show you now from the Microsoft Graph developer blog. And it goes through and reminds you about this app compliance program. So this is the ability for you to get your app verified in detail by a team of people, and then get that certification. And it's that certification that really gives customers and end users and IT admins some confidence that your app is doing the right thing. This is different from the self-certification that you do. This is an actual a third-party assessment kind of assessors that validate the app, and they do all sorts of things to check. Let me show you. They do all sorts of things to check that your app is doing the right thing. They'll do external checks. They'll check that the graph permissions you're asking for are relevant and valid, and you're not overreaching in your asks. They'll do some application security testing. So they're doing all sorts of things to really make sure your app is doing all the things it says and is as safe as possible. And if you pass all of those, you will get this certification program to demonstrate your application is kind of doing a good job and is qualified to have your users' data. And this is a great service that kind of Microsoft are offering to app developers, because it's good for Microsoft because it gives users confidence to install your applications, and that's good for them. It's good for the App Store because it means the quality of applications in the App Store goes up, and it's good for you because you get this third-party assessment company validating your application and making sure that you're not leaving yourself open, but also giving users of your application that confidence. So it's a win all round. Definitely worth checking out. And if you've got an app in the App Store or anything like that, you should definitely, there's no reason really not to go through this process and get certified. Okay, and finally, I think let's talk about this, which is a slightly unusual thing, I suppose, but it might be of use to some people. You can now get your Outlook email in Edge. And I know this has been sort of well reported elsewhere, but I've got the link as well we can talk through. And in case you haven't heard it, if you spend a lot of time in Edge and you wished that you could see your emails in Edge, you can now install an extension to make that happen. For me, it's a bit odd. It feels like Edge feels like browsing the web and Outlook feels like email, and I don't know why you'd mix the two, but I'm old school. I know a lot of people use the Outlook web client in Edge, so maybe it does make sense to have it as an extension. Being able to view the calendar from Edge is maybe a bonus as well. Really, you can quickly view the calendar, which is nice. But yeah, this shows up as an Edge extension. So you get an icon along the top by the address bar, and that gives you a super quick access to your emails, to your calendar, to your tasks, and your contacts. So yeah, if that's of interest to you, then you go check it out. I'll put a link in the notes, and you can add it to your Microsoft Edge client today. Okay, I think that's everything from me. Like I say, Inspire is coming up this week. I haven't yet had a chance to look through the session list. I will do that, and if there's anything of interest, I will call it out in a blog post. So look out for a blog post from me. If I see something, it will be, calling out the sessions that I think are interesting in Microsoft Inspire this year. Yeah, other than that, have a great week, whatever it is you're doing, and I will talk to you again at the top of the week next week. All right, have a great one. Thanks for watching.